For joining us. We begin with breaking news right now outside the 4th Avenue jail in downtown Phoenix, where police are working to contain a growing crowd of protesters angry over the sheriff's office treatment of undocumented immigrants.
They swarmed the Maricopa County jail this afternoon, demanding Sheriff Penzone end the practice of turning those immigrants over to ICE. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Joe Dana in for Mark tonight. So far, those protests have remained peaceful, but there's been a lot of tension between protesters and counter-protesters.
Team 12's Bianca Bono is there live with the latest. Bianca?
Mi gente! Mi gente!
Hey, Caribe and Joe, I'm standing right behind the camera shot you're seeing right now. We're looking at sheriff's deputies in full tactical gear, standing right behind four protesters who are chained together. These four protesters have been in that position for quite some time now, and it's been quite a moment of tension. They're asking protesters to stand back. I'm going to go ahead and stand back to give these sheriff's deputies some space, but what I can tell you is that there are still dozens of protesters here. It looks like the four who are chained together are not moving, and they've said throughout this protest that they won't be moving from where they are. I spoke with one of the women who's sitting there earlier, and she told me that she's very passionate about this movement, Abolish ICE, because her mother was deported when she was in jail here in Maricopa County, and that's the exact policy that is fueling this movement. Many people here were hoping that when Sheriff Penzone took over, he would no longer allow ICE officials in the jail to interview the inmates here and ask them about their immigration status, and they are not satisfied with his policies. So we want to show you some video that was taken earlier today. Sky 12 flew over the scene to show you just kind of the magnitude of this protest. Not only are there Abolish ICE protesters here, but there are quite a few counter-protesters. Their signs read things like deport all illegals. So there have been some tense moments when the two protesting groups have collided, but thankfully no violence. We did speak with some protesters earlier. I believe we have a soundbite from one of those protesters earlier. Take a listen.
We're crossing the street. We're crossing the street, folks.
Okay, so what's happening right now is the majority of the protesters are crossing the street. But again, as I mentioned at the beginning, four people are chained together and they are refusing to move, even though officials are asking everyone to move back. Our photographer is up close and personal getting a shot of the four of them. Now, this is the second time we've seen these sheriff's deputies in full tactical gear this afternoon. About an hour or so ago, just before 5 o'clock, they opened up this gate just to kind of show their presence right behind the gate in case things were to get out of control, and then they quickly closed it shut. But about 10 minutes ago, they reopened it and have moved forward. And again, that's what you're seeing right now. They appear to be just kind of creeping forward, asking these protesters to move across the street. The majority have listened, but those four do not seem to be moving. The counter-protesters have moved right behind, actually, the four people who are chained together. It doesn't look like anyone has been arrested. Again, people are remaining fairly peaceful. Their words have been aggressive, but their actions have been peaceful. So we're just kind of watching this all unfold right before our eyes right now. And not only are there sheriff's deputies here, but behind us what you're not seeing is that there are several Phoenix police officers here as well, just kind of monitoring the situation. Now people are kind of spilling into the street just behind where these protesters are. Photographers kind of moving out as well. So we're just taking a look at what's happening here. But again, as of right now, it looks like those four protesters who are chained together are not going to move. They said they'd be willing to get arrested if that's what it takes. So unclear if that's what's going to happen. But these officials here are asking everyone to move out of the way. Guys?
All right, Bianca, thank you so much for that update. We will check back in with you if anything else develops out there at the 4th Avenue jail in downtown Phoenix.